Welcome back to the show, everybody. We're doing part 2 on the corona origins. Just gonna rehash some things that we went over in the first video. We're at the Foreign Affairs Committee .house.gov. They did a report and they were talking about how the Wuhan Center Institute of Virology, they were doing dangerous genetic modification research on coronaviruses at unsafe biosafety levels. And the researchers also were found to have the ability to genetically modify coronaviruses as early as 2016 without leaving any trace of that modification. Again, this was determined in the report published on the Foreign House Affairs. Here's the report itself. It's very lengthy and extremely detailed, so feel free to check it out. It's quite the fun ride. That was the addendum, actually. This is the original report. They're both linked in the first page. Extremely well cited. Really interesting citations. Definitely a must-have for any consummate observer. We're going to start out today with the Taiwan News. They're a left-leaning liberal publication. I typed them into media bias fact check, and they gave us all this information here. Left of center. And when we go to their home page, we see they're talking about climate change, pretty much the usual leftist ideology. Yeah, they did a really good job in covering all this information. And so I just went through a couple articles and compiled them all here for you guys today. Again, Taiwan News, 0 chance coronavirus is natural, Chinese virologist. I highlighted a couple of interesting tidbits here. Yan, the doctor, the Chinese virologist, claimed that the coronavirus did not jump directly from bats to humans, but rather is based on a bat virus. She alleges the coronavirus was discovered and owned by the PLA, which is the People's Liberation Army of China. Through engineering modifications, it goes on in laboratory in a series of pathogen animals. The virus acquired a focus on humans, quote-unquote, giving it a strong lethality. Yan said that the gut genome of the coronavirus reveals its actual man-made origin. She asserted that the Communist Party tried to delay the disclosure of the genome sequence at the beginning of the outbreak, and they even deliberately changed the genome by entering the wrong sequences into the National Institute of Health, apparently to confuse everybody. So yeah, check out the articles here. They're very interesting. We're moving on. Chinese virologist claims coronavirus derived from Zhoushan bat virus. This is the same researcher employed at one of the universities in, I believe, Hong Kong. I highlighted another tidbit here. She was saying that another researcher deliberately posted a paper on February 3rd to seemingly draw attention to a coronavirus strain identified it as RATG13, which is a strain she and her team discovered in Yunnan in bats during 2013. And apparently it's 96% identical to SARS-CoV-2. Yan, the original researcher that we're talking about, claims that there was an orchestrated attempt to throw investigators off the Zhoushan bat virus strains, while she herself claims that the fact that RATG13 is only 4% different from SARS-CoV-2 exonerates her lab from being the source of the outbreak. Yan claims that this document was posted on the World Health Organization after the visit to the Wuhan, pointed out the origin of the COVID-19 is actually closer to the Zhoushan virus, coming from bats, than the RATG13 virus. You're going to need your thinking caps for this one, so stay with me, guys. An examination of the genome sequences released by the Chinese government also shows that the Zhoushan viruses are closest to the SARS-CoV-2 and that they are the backbone upon which COVID-19 was constructed. And this is all being put forth by this researcher, Chinese virologist, whistleblower. Again, we're at the Taiwan news. We're moving along here. This is all in sequential order as they were published. Virologist releases paper claiming coronavirus made in Chinese lab. Again, this young woman, whistleblower, she's talking about, Yan Li Ming, a virologist employed as a researcher at University of Hong Kong School of Public Health. And she's been alleging again that the Chinese lab created this chimera based on the Zhoushan bat coronavirus. According to Yan, the examination of the genome sequences released by the Chinese government also shows that the strains are closest to SARS-CoV-2. We went over that just earlier. Now it's talking about a paper that she released with her independent, non-funded research team under her own volition. In part 1 of the paper, the scientists provide evidence that COVID was subjected to vitro manipulation. First, it states that the genomic sequences of the virus are strikingly similar to that of the bat coronavirus found by the People's Liberation Army labs in third military medical universities in Chongqing, China, and the Research Institute for Medicine of the Nanjing Command in Nanjing, China. Second, it shows that the receptor binding motif found in the virus's notorious spike protein is quote-unquote suspiciously similar to SARS-CoV-2, the 2003 SARS outbreak, indicating it was most likely genetically modified. Third, the spike protein of the virus contains a unique furin cleavage site that is completely absent in the particular class of coronaviruses found in nature, while these rare codons seen in the sequences suggest that it could have been inserted into the genome artificially. Regarding the Zhoushan bat virus, the team wrote that the two identities have the highest sequence identity with the SARS-CoV-2 in terms of similarity. Both of these Zhoushan bat viruses that were used in the laboratory have a 97% identical to the SARS-CoV-2. The nucleocapsid protein is 94% identical, the membrane protein is 98% identical, and the S2 protein, the second half of the spike protein, is 95% identical. The paper emphasized that the ORF8 protein is 94% identical, while the E protein is 100% identical to SARS-CoV-2. The ORF8 is highly unusual in coronaviruses, it goes on to say, while no other known coronaviruses share 100% of the E protein with SARS-CoV-2, besides the ones that she was talking about in the Zhoushan bat virus strains. Further down in this article, the authors pointed out that she, the original detractor who is trying to get everybody off of the path of the Zhoushan virus, they had successfully modified the RBM, what they call the RBM, and the report estimates that the phase would take only about 1 or 2 months. The engineering of the furin cleavage site, it goes on to say, in the S1, S2 junction of the spike protein. According to the researchers, this stretch of gene sequences can be conveniently inserted using a number of standard cloning techniques. The author stated that none of these methods would leave any trace in the sequence. The further modification of the spike protein, including the furin cleavage site, could be completed in no more than 2 weeks, according to the report. This method has been available, it goes on to say, since 2017, and would not leave any trace of artificial manipulation in the created viral genome. The paper also mentioned that the Wuhan Institute of Virology has used alternative methods as well to reverse genetics in the past, making them a likely candidate to be producing all of this research. Now we're going back to the Foreign Affairs Committee, and they determined in their research the exact same thing. The Wuhan Institute of Virology research had the ability to genetically modify coronaviruses as early as 2016 without leaving any trace of that modification, just as Yan has tried to warn us. So now we're looking at the paper that she released with her team. Unusual features of the SARS-CoV-2 genomes suggesting sophisticated laboratory modification. I thought this was an interesting publication note here, so I just wanted to go over it before we end the video today. The 3 Yan reports used scientific evidence and analysis to prove that SARS-CoV-2 is an unrestricted bioweapon created by military scientists of the Chinese Communist Party. These reports have been a pivotal role in revealing the true identity of the ongoing unrestricted biowarfare. For this reason, the CCP and its allies, including the United States, have been constantly launching attacks at the Yan reports. Very recently, the Rule of Law Foundation, the ROLF, and the Rule of Law Society, the ROLS, which we have listed as honorary affiliation in our reports, requested this website Zenodo to have the original uploads of our reports closed. This was done without informing the authors or seeking any type of agreement, modification, editing. This is unacceptable because the work was done by us authors independently with no financial assistance provided by anyone or any organization. Their actions here have no scientific basis and are against the rules of scientific publications. To restore the availability of these reports to the world, we have therefore re-uploaded the 3 Yan reports independently. Our affiliation has been changed to Yan Research, an independent research team. So take a look at the articles, everyone. They're very interesting. And keep your thinking caps on for this one. Thanks again, guys.